welcome back to Combat 24/7, episode 4. Creighton, is that you?
Yeah, of course, representing, showing out for Sugar Sean this weekend.
That hair is dope. That's super cool. So, how are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. You know, really thankful for all the fights right now. A lot of chaos going on in the world, and
Yeah.
nice to have something to keep your mind
Yeah,
off of all that.
without getting into that, just want to say, everyone stay safe out there, you know, um, and let the Lord be with you. So, you want to go ahead and hop into Saturday's main event, last Saturday, Tyron Woodley, Gilbert Burns main event. We can go ahead and hop into the main card if you want. So we got Mackenzie Dern and Hannah Cyphers. Hannah Cyphers is tough, for sure. But Mackenzie Dern came out there and got the first woman's leg lock in UFC history. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's one where on their feet, you could say it was evenly matched up, and then just based off of acclimates and watching them fight, you knew if it went to the ground, it was going to be trouble for Hannah Cyphers, and she really did have. She just had a lack of urgency. When you're going against someone with the jiu-jitsu caliber of Mackenzie Dern, you gotta have a sense of urgency, and because that's what happens. They were on the ground for like 15 seconds, and that was that.
Yeah, that was a very impressive performance by Mackenzie Dern, and that's coming off of a loss to Amanda Ebus.
First one too.
Yeah, her first loss, and now she's coming back with a pretty quick leg lock. What do you think? What would you like to see next for Mackenzie Dern in the strawweight division?
Yeah, that's that 115. That's a tough division. There's a lot, as far as depth goes, I think you could argue that's the toughest women's division. Just I think interesting matchup wise, I'm always a fan of jiu-jitsu and wrestling, so I wouldn't mind seeing her and Tatiana Suarez. Obviously Suarez is a little bit higher in the rankings, but I think as a fan, I think stylistically that'd be fun to watch. Some of the grappling exchanges.
Yeah, and as far as Suarez goes, has she been out for a while? She had an injury, correct?
Yeah, I believe her last fight was Nina Ansaroff, and then something with her neck. She's been out since then.
Yeah, that'd be a very cool fight for sure. Roosevelt Roberts and Brock Weaver. There was a little bit of banter going back and forth between those two, wasn't there?
Yeah, that I had no idea that Roosevelt Roberts was so good. Obviously, with Brock Weaver, he's kind of some, a couple. His first fight was a little interesting. Obviously, not the way you want your first fight to go. But then to step into Roosevelt Roberts, he's lightning quick. He's a very long, lanky guy at 155. It was definitely an entertaining fight. I don't know. I think Roosevelt Roberts, he's a lot of fun to watch. I think he'll be able to make his way into the rankings eventually.
Yeah, last June I saw Roosevelt Roberts fight Vince Pichel. I don't know how you say it, but very high-low fight. And that was his first loss. So, but he looked good in the fight. So I think Roosevelt Roberts is definitely going to have a good future at lightweight. As far as Brock Weaver, I'd like to see him match it against another opponent. He's a fun fighter. Yeah. So then, I don't know. I think I've been telling you this, but I've been telling everyone, Billy Quarantillo, he's super legit. I mean, ever since his last fight, he's really legit, and he went against a really tough fighter in Spike Carlisle. What a fun fight! What a fun first round.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I say I wasn't pulling hard for Spike in that.
Yeah.
That dude's. It's pretty hard for me personally. It was pretty hard not to cheer for him. Tough decision too. That second round. I felt Spike clearly won the first. Billy clearly won the third. That second one, I mean, you could argue either way. I would love to see Spike get his hand raised just because, he's a very fun to watch guy. But like you said, Billy's a tough guy. I think both of them fun to watch.
Yeah, I think both of them have very good promise in the featherweight division going forward. They're super legit. Spike, I love how he came out like right off the gate and just ran. And I think that kind of has to do somewhat with the smaller octagon. How did you feel about the smaller octagon in these fights?
Yeah, the only one that kind of stuck out to me was, obviously I was very excited about the main event, and I felt like having a smaller octagon was going to help someone like Gilbert Burns, just because, anytime he can get his hands on anybody, he's going to be at an advantage just because he's got such a high level of jiu-jitsu. So that was kind of the one that intrigued me the most because, Woodley's kind of been known for, he'll kind of almost like a Yoel Romero style, will kind of wait and then can explode on a second like that and put you out. So I thought, it obviously was a great main event, but I thought that was a fight I was looking most forward to in the octagon just because, you could use it to Gilbert's advantage that he can, get Woodley up against the fence and get his hands on him and maybe get it to the ground. And then for Woodley, he's always in that range to land that right hand.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like stealing off of what Brett Okamoto said in his post fight analysis. I kind of do like the original octagon. I believe it's 30 foot. Am I correct in that?
I think so.
I do like the 30-foot octagon when it comes to title fights, and I don't know why, and he doesn't know why either, Brett Okamoto, but it just seems like it's more like official. There's less, I don't want to say chance, but it's more, I think that's how title fights should be done, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you could, there's definitely an argument both ways. I don't know. Obviously, it's kind of hard to know exactly how big the difference is, because I've never really been in either of them. But, I imagine for the fighters, maybe their gym isn't smaller octagon or, they were able to kind of train and prepare around that environment. But I don't know. I can't necessarily say I have a preference either way. Just as I would like as long as the fighters, have their time to know what they're working with and be able to adjust and adapt their game plan.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like what they were saying. They were like, in the contracts, there was no specifications on how big the octagon was. So then let's say you're preparing for a 30-foot octagon and you go into a 25-foot octagon. It might not make a huge difference, but still you're not preparing for the smaller close encounter grappling actions. So I feel like, for the bigger octagon, or at least it should be specified in the contract.
Yeah, I could definitely see an argument for that.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I always mess up his name. Blagoy Ivanov, I think. Yep. And then Augusto Sakai. That was a close fight. It was a pretty close fight there. I kind of thought Ivanov had the nod, but I can't really argue it was close enough.
Yeah, that was definitely a real close one. I thought Sakai deserved to get his hand raised. Like you said, you could argue either way. I really thought kind of going into the second, going into the third, I kind of thought that he was going to pull away a little bit. I don't know. The biggest thing, at least in that fight that stood out to me, was the cage grab. That was pretty blatant, and I don't know. I mean, obviously it's hard to say like how it would have dictated the fight, but I mean, either way, that's a pretty substantial difference of whether or not someone gets a takedown. And, obviously in hindsight, you can't do anything, but had a point been taken, I can't say that I would have been, too mad. That made sense to me. Take away a point. That was a pretty drastic change of events.
For those who didn't see that, I believe it was round 3. Blagoy Ivanov was taking down Augusto Sakai, and Sakai grabbed the cage and was able to basically get back up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And
he grabbed that thing too.
Oh yeah, he grabbed it hard. And yeah, it's kind of shocking that the ref didn't even say anything about it. I don't know if the ref didn't see it but it was pretty blatant. And there's something to be said, Creighton, that if Blagoy would have gotten the takedown, he probably would have gotten the nod. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's hard to say because who knows. But one thing was clear was that if he did not have a handful of fence, he was going down. And, third round, guys, heavyweight, big guys like that, obviously they're going to be fatigued, big bodies. Ivanov is pretty high caliber as far as his grappling goes with the Sambo history. So, I mean, who knows? But just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunate when something like that happens, especially when the referee doesn't take action. So, the main event, definitely not how I expected it to go. I will swallow my words here. Tyron Woodley, Gilbert Burns, an absolute destruction by Gilbert Burns. Did you see it going? Was this even a scenario for you? Dominance?
No, I mean, I don't know. But, same thing with Usman. I thought Usman was definitely a formidable opponent for Woodley, but, I mean, to just go out in 5 rounds, dominate him from start to finish was not at all what I was expecting. And then Burns, same thing. I can't say I was sleeping on him because, I'd watched him come up and do damage, but I don't know. Woodley's such a killer to, see someone just put it on him like that from start to finish. And I mean, I genuinely believed him when he said that, he was back focused, back dialed in, training as hard as he could. So, I can't say that it looked like Woodley wasn't there. I mean, I thought Woodley didn't look bad by any means. Gilbert just, Gilbert showed why he deserves to be #1 welterweight right now.
Yeah, and Woodley has me messed up because I remember when the Till Woodley fight was coming on. Okay, I was even saying I think Till's gonna win, but I'll bet on Woodley. And I was sleeping on Woodley, who's the champion, who had multiple title defenses, and Woodley dominated. So then after that moment, I said, I'm not going to sleep on Woodley again. And I remember you texted me right before the Woodley-Usman fight. I don't know if you remember this. You texted me and said, does Usman even have a chance? And I was like, no, of course he doesn't have a chance. And then Usman dominates him. And then this Gilbert Burns fight, I said, Woodley, of course, had a bad performance. He's coming back strong. I can't sleep on Woodley. And this happened. So with Woodley, I'm not sure what to expect anymore. I mean, you sleep on him and he shows up and you count him as your favorite and he, stuff happens. Of course, Gilbert Burns, not taking anything away from him. He's the top of the top level, but I hadn't seen anything thus far that would make me think that was going to happen. So this puts Gilbert Burns in a very interesting spot. He's now ranked #1 in the welterweight division.
Yeah, that welterweight division, that's a fun division, can be matchmaker. I rambled to you a little bit where I kind of thought they should go. Obviously, who knows what the UFC is working on, with traveling issues. I don't know how that kind of complicates things regarding Leon Edwards. But regardless, there's a lot of fun matchups to make in that division.
Yeah, obviously, to be honest, I don't think Gilbert Burns should have hopped over that many fighters and gone to #1 spot. I think at least maybe went to 3rd or something like that, because you're hopping over a lot of elite opposition. You're hopping over Leon Edwards, who has won 8 in a row, I believe. You're hopping over Colby Covington, who only has 2 losses, and one of them is to the champion. You're hopping over Jorge Masvidal, which, say what you want about him, he's had the most fantastic year last year that anybody's ever had. So I almost feel like this is setting up for a Gilbert Burns Kamaru Usman fight, in my opinion, is with the Masvidal Usman negotiations falling through. I think they could use Gilbert Burns as kind of like a ploy to get the negotiations with Usman and Masvidal going back up, because before it was like, what other fight? But now that they have Burns, they can be like, well, if you're not going to take the fight, we'll give it to Burns. And this might be a good something that will get Usman and Masvidal to take less money. You agree?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And part of me thinks, if you kind of look at Burns' career, he's always been known for, he doesn't care. He'll fight anyone, anytime. That's supposedly why he jumped up to 170 in the first place, is because he wanted to be able to take short notice fights. And you look at, some of the short notice fights he took, and, he was kind of the guy that the UFC could call, and he would say sure. So I got to think in one way or another, they're gonna try and reward him, whether that be a title shot or putting the number 1 next to his name. I can't say I'd be surprised if him and Usman is a matchup they try and make.
Yeah, 2 fights ago, I mean, who was talking about Gilbert Burns in a title shot? Then he TKOs Damian Maia, beats Tyron Woodley, and now if he's not up for a title shot, he's one fight away.
And he had Damian Maia on his back, which nobody gets Damian Maia off their back.
Oh my gosh. So very impressive by Gilbert Burns. I don't even want to get into breaking down Burns and Usman, but I think Usman would have the edge there. But I don't know. You can't tell because Burns has such high-level jiu-jitsu. It's like that would be a very fun matchup. I mean, you would think Usman would have the upside in grappling, but jiu-jitsu definitely Burns does. So, you know what? Take my money. I'll watch that fight for sure. Now, I don't want to get – because I see a lot of people, a lot of MMA shows, just jumping to the Tyron Woodley retirement card. He's still very high level. He's gone against 2 very high-level opponents. I don't think it's time for retirement, but what do you think would be a good next move for him?
Yeah, if he still feels that he's got some fight left in him, absolutely. I think he's such a freak athlete it's a very real possibility for him. And like I said, I heard this earlier from watching some Uncle Chael on YouTube. He mentioned Woodley going up to 185, which I really like that idea. It's something he's toyed with in the past. I know he had his back and forth with Izzy. I think he was supposed to fight Bisping at one point. And then I know after he beat Till, he said that he wanted to go up and fight Whitaker at some point. So I definitely think that's something, for a fresh start, he could try and pursue. There's a lot of fun matchups at 85. I watch him and Weidman. I know I had originally said maybe him and Hermanson, but it sounds like Hermanson and Gastelum just got booked. So, I don't know. I think that's, there's a lot of fun matchups there, and that could be, the refreshing start that he needs after coming off two pretty dominant defeats.
Yeah, and how do you think he would fare against opponents at 185? They're a lot bigger than 170. That's a 15-pound difference. How do you think he would match up with bigger opponents? I mean, does that really not play a factor with Tyron Woodley's power?
Yeah, I mean, you look at, when you look at someone like Kelvin Gastelum, who had the success he had, at 185 being only 5'9" with his frame, and then you look at, obviously same height as Woodley, where Woodley beat Gastelum, and I think he's definitely stricken down a lot more than Gastelum had to make 170. So I think at 185, I don't think he'd have a problem filling out. Obviously, he's going to be at a little bit of a height disadvantage, but I mean, you've seen he's fought lanky guys before. Till he was about as big as a 70-pounder can get. Wonder Boy was a long 70-pounder. He fought kept Damian Maia off of him. Damian Maia fought for the belt at 185. So I definitely think he's got the strength, and he knows how to fight longer, taller guys. I don't know. I think it'd be a good fit for him if it's something that he's interested in pursuing.
I think 170. That's where I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm not saying he wouldn't fare well at 185. I think 170 is a good place for him. I'd like to see Robbie Lawler versus Tyron Woodley too. I think they're both at that point in their career where I think that'd be a good matchup in a competitive fight.
Yeah, I would absolutely watch that.
For sure. Now, moving on to UFC 250. Some super good fights on here. Obviously, when the main event was announced, it wasn't exactly big uproar of a huge card, but besides the main event, I mean, trust me, main event's great, but besides the main event, I mean, this card is stacked top to bottom. There's some pretty good fights on here. So we'll hop into the early prelims. Herbert Burns, Evan Dunham. Herbert Burns had a very impressive showing last fight, and How do you think that fight plays out and who you got?
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to go against Herbert Burns on this one. You know, he might be undefeated. He might have a couple, maybe 1 or 2 losses.
2 losses, 10 wins.
2 losses. Okay, but regardless, I think, you know, obviously you watch what his brother's doing. You know, if they're training together, doing all the right things, it's hard to imagine that he's not going to be ready to go. And I think just overall talent wise, I think he's should definitely have the advantage. Evan Dunham's definitely tough, but you gotta lean. I lean towards Burns in this one for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I'll plead ignorance. I haven't seen many of Evan Dunham's fights, so I can't really say anything about him. All I can say is going off of what I've seen from Herbert Burns, and he's beyond impressive. And I think I'd lean towards Herbert Burns, even if I didn't know the other person. You know what I mean? So moving on, we got Alonzo Menafield versus Devin Clark. I saw Alonzo Menafield again last June, and he fought against Paul Craig, and he smashed him. He
I was
dominated.
gonna say, didn't he knock him out cold or something?
Yeah, that was when I saw that fight. I was like, this guy has a pretty good future at light heavyweight. Devin Clark, very tough. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty high on Alonzo. I think he's a big 205. I think he's got a lot of power, and I think he gets the job done for sure.
Finish?
Why not? Why not? We'll go with the second round knockout.
Second round knockout. Yeah, I think Alonzo Menafield gets it done. And of course, feel free to throw out any bets. You know your Combat 24/7 crew is always down for a good bet. Juicier Formiga versus Alex Perez. Again, not trying to toot my own horn. I saw Formiga live. He went against Joseph Benavidez, and that was not his night. But I mean, these two are very high level. I think this is crazy to me that this is on the early prelims. That's pretty crazy to me. How do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, I agree. This is a super duper high level fight. I think it, I hate to say it, but I think it just kind of shows like how much the UFC really cares about the flyweight division, which is unfortunate because a lot of these guys, for me personally, I think they're fun to watch. There's a very high skill level. I don't know, especially in this one being the early prelims. I think both Juicier Formiga and Alex Perez are both super talented. I'm leaning towards Alex Perez on this one, but Formiga's a vet. He's fought a lot of tough guys. I could see him getting the win, but I'm leaning towards Perez for sure.
Yeah, I was high on Juicier Formiga even after his Joseph Benavidez fight, but then when he came back in his last fight, I forget who did he fight. A real killer at 125. Help me out. You know everything.
Top of my head, I can't.
Oh, Brandon Moreno. After he fight Brandon Moreno, yeah, and he lost to him as well. I think Alex Perez is on a streak, and I see Alex Perez pulling it off. All right, on to the prelims card. We're just going to point out some of them that we think are good fights. Cody Stamann, Brian Kelleher, is that how you say it? Super good fight. Cody Stamann, his last fight, he went against
I believe his last fight was
Young. And I actually thought Cody Stamann won that fight, but he ended up getting the judges' scorecards read the other way. Brian Kelleher has had 2 very impressive finishes in a row. So this is going to be a good fight. I got to lean Cody Stamann. But what do you think?
Yeah, first, shout out to Cody and his family. I was just reading earlier that his younger brother just passed away.
Wow.
A year ago. So, thoughts and prayers to his family, of course. As far as the fight goes, I think Kelleher's got a lot of power, and I think there's a very real chance that he can put him away. But I think Cody Stamann's wrestling, I think, is think all around, he's got the advantage, but I think his wrestling is going to be the factor. And I see Cody Stamann winning a decision, the dominant decision.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be a tough one early. You know, Kelleher is super tough, and
Kelleher's got bombs. Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun fight to watch. Mearshart, you know, his last fight, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, something like that.
Yeah, I think right.
Fight against I can't think of his name, from AKA Daron Wynn. That's who it was. Yeah, obviously I'm a wrestler, so I'm biased, but I was pretty high on Daron Wynn, and you know, Mearshart kind of put it on him, and Heinz is good as well. I think both of these guys, you know, they're kind of on the cusp of getting a number next to their name at 185. I think they'll put on a great show. I think that's a real good fight, you know, for prelims. I'm gonna go with Ian Heinz, or no, I'm not. I'm gonna go with Mearshart on that one. Again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
I'm gonna go with Mearshart too. Ian Heinisch is coming off of 2 losses, so you know, obviously you know how the UFC works, Creighton. You're coming off of 2 losses. Let me throw you a monster. So he's coming off losses to Derek Brunson and another loss at UFC 245. If I could pronounce his name, I would. But, you know, I think it's going to be a good fight. But to be honest with you, I see Mearshart having the advantage. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Mearshart's going to win by decision. What do you think? How do you think Mearshart gets it done?
Yeah. I'm going to go with a decision as well. I think they're both, you know, super tough guys. I guess I wasn't aware that Ian's on a 2-fight lose streak. You know, from what I've seen, he's, you know, always looked pretty solid. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a close decision. I think that's a sleeper fight, though. I think they're gonna put on a good fight.
So moving on, Alex Caceres versus Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper looked really good at UFC 245. Before we get into that, it was so funny. Chase Hooper kind of has an afro, and he went up to Jorge Masvidal, and he's like, "How could you do that to my dad?" And Jorge's like, "Who's your dad?" And he's like, "Ben Askren." And Jorge Masvidal's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He's like, "That was Chase Hooper is hilarious." But how do you Alex Caceres? I feel like they just feed to all the new up and comers. They fed him to Kron Gracie, and we saw how that went. And now they're feeding him to Chase Hooper. You got to think Chase Hooper gets the nod in this one, don't you think?
Yeah. On paper, you definitely got to give him the advantage. I don't know. He's very durable. I feel like every fight I see him, he's getting beat up for majority of the fight, then pulls it off. I think, you know, it's throughout I can't think of his name. Alex Caceres, I'm sorry. It seems like throughout Caceres' career, he's had a history of being pretty prone to submissions. And I think that's, you know, a pretty good matchup for Chase Hooper. Both of them super long, lanky guys for 145. And I don't know. I still think it's a pretty big step up for Hooper. He's clearly, you know, he's clearly got a lot of talent, only 20 years old. So I can't say I'd be surprised if he comes out and looks drastically better than his last few performances. But I don't know. I think as a sleeper, I'm going to go with Caceres on this one.
Wow, okay.
My underdog.
So the one fight that I announced, you got to go with Hooper. You flip it up on me. Oh, my gosh. Are you going to take any odds on a bet there? I'll give
No,
you
sir.
Okay.
Not a chance.
Sugar Sean O'Malley and Eddie Wineland.
Sugar Show.
Are you going to go ahead and take Eddie so I'll give you like 2-1 odds?
No.
There's 2 fighters you would never bet against. Who are those fighters?
2 fighters I would never bet against. Habib?
No, like your favorite fighters. You just couldn't.
Oh. Well, I learned my lesson on Darren Till. I'll never bet with him again. And, of course, Sugar Show.
Yeah, I was thinking Darren Till, Sugar Sean O'Malley. You can't bet against them.
No. it it causes too much stress. It's not healthy for me to watch it.
Stress for you when Tyron Woodley was fighting not Sugar Sean O'Malley. Tyron Woodley was fighting Darren Till, and we had $200 on it.
It was a disaster. I don't know. I had
Did you
horrible.
enjoy it?
I didn't enjoy it at all. No, it was horrible. I was my foot was like twitching the whole time. It was rough.
So as far as Sugar Sean O'Malley and Eddie Wineland, Wineland is a true veteran. You know, he's been in the game. But Sean O'Malley, as I was saying to you earlier, I mean, his performance against Quinones, his hands just look so crisp. And I think this is just like he's only getting better every fight. And what I really like about Sean O'Malley is, you know, he eats the right things. He's like dedicated to his craft. You know, he eats the right things. He trains all the time. Like he's super dedicated. And that's really some signs of a future star.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be, putting it all together, just doing all the right things. He's definitely got a bright future. But yeah, that being said, of course, Eddie Wineland's, he's fought the who's, fought for the title. It's just hard for me to imagine anywhere where he can beat him. O'Malley seems to be putting it all together from his wrestling, jiu-jitsu. Obviously, his striking's always been there. So yeah, hard to not have him as a heavy favorite in this one.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we both agree Sean O'Malley. I think it gets done by finish. Even though Wineland is incredibly tough, I think Sean finishes him probably early, probably the first round. First or second, I don't know. He usually gets people out quick. Then we're moving on to Neil Magny and Anthony Rocco Martin. Anthony Rocco Martin is super tough. He's had some good recent performances, and I was there once again, not tooting my horn, but I was there when he fought Damian Maia, and he was able to survive with Damian Maia on the ground. I mean, that's a win within itself. And Neil Magny, is super high level. So how do you think that one plays out? That one's close for me. That's a close one.
Yeah, this is the one. I would say this is, probably the one fight on the card that I really don't know. Obviously, with a little bit of recency bias, I'm probably going to go with Neil Magny just because, the pace he put on his last fight, the way he pieced it all together, it was phenomenal. But like you said, Anthony Martin, it's a tough dude. He fought Damian Maia to, one card or one judge gave it a draw. That was a tough fight. I think both of them, super excited. That welterweight division's so stacked, but there's a lot of tough matchups for both of them. And I think this one's super evenly matched too. I mean, it's hard to, I feel like it's kind of hard to give a blatant advantage to either one.
Yeah. I got to root for Anthony. That's just personally. I'm a big fan of his. But I think, I'm rooting for him, but I think Neil Magny has a slight advantage, maybe just an experience too, So that's going to be a super good fight. Moving on to the people's main event. I mean, the third fight in the card. Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen. That's a good fight.
Yeah, that really is.
Why isn't that for the belt? I don't mean to copy Ariel Helwani, but why is that for the belt?
Yeah, it definitely – it's not too late to throw it on. I think they both – it's a tough matchup because they're both – stylistically, they're both long and lanky, and they know how to use it to their advantage. I think Aljamain is going to win. I think a lot more dominantly than a lot of people are guessing. I've seen a lot of people kind of say Sandhagen, and he's absolutely a stud. But kind of when I look at Aljamain's path and some of the losses that he's taken, how he's been able to bounce back and adjust his style, I think he's got it all down to a T. And I think he's going to be able to implement perfect game plan, and I see him getting the job done.
Yeah, I think Sterling has had a more impressive resume, to be honest. And just seeing how he pieced up Pedro Munoz, that was like, whoa, you know?
Yeah,
Pedro Munoz is a dog. So I got to give it to Aljamain Sterling. But to be honest with you, I couldn't be too surprised if Corey pulled it off, you know? It's
hmm
whoever, I mean, at this point, with all the quarantine going on, it's really whoever has more preparation and whoever brings it because these two, I think it's a good matchup. I think this is the right fight to make. I just think maybe it should have been like Peter Yan and Sterling for the belt, but we can sit here and cry. Bottom line is, the winner of these two get the title shot next. So
I agree,
fight,
100%.
good fight. Rafael Assunção, Cody Garbrandt. I'm begging for Cody Garbrandt to come in differently. I'm begging for him to pull this off and be the old Cody Garbrandt we knew, who beat Dominic Cruz in outstanding fashion.
Yeah, I think the whole world wants to see uh, a Cody Garbrandt who can keep it together. You know, it's obviously everyone knows how talented he is and what he's capable of. Rafael Assunção is tough too. I mean, he's a veteran. Beat Marlon Moraes. He's fought, just about everybody at 135. He's a big 135. I don't know. And the thing that kind of concerns me is, Cody's talked a lot about going down to flyweight, saving the flyweights, and all that, which is good if he feels he can make it healthily. But kind of from what I take from that is that I don't want to say that he's not committed to winning this fight, but I mean, it almost seems like he might have one foot out the door ready for a change. But obviously, I hope that he's able to piece it all together and he is in the right frame of mind. Because if he is, I think it's going to be a great fight. And, I'd love to see Cody I would love more than anything to see him get a win because I think with him mentally, I think as soon as he gets one win, he might be able to dial it back in and, be that Cody who knocked out Thomas Almeida and, put it on Dominic Cruz.
To be honest, I'd love to see 3 rounds of Cody Garbrandt just doing his thing. You know, I'd love it if it went all 3 rounds. And of course, Rafael Assunção is very tough. It's hard for me to pick this one because you never know, where Cody Garbrandt's at if he was redialed in. But I got to give the edge to Cody Garbrandt, even coming off of 3 knockout losses. Who do you think takes it?
Mm. The other thing that kind of worries me about Cody is he started working with Mark Henry for his striking, which I think is a great thing. I think Mark Henry's, one of the best striking coaches in the game. The only thing that worries me is obviously I don't have any personal experience, but it's been very well documented that he has a pretty complicated striking system, and it takes a lot to adjust to. So I worry that if they're even in if there's the slightest bit of miscommunication, I would hate to see that throw Cody off. And I think he's got all the tools to win, but I'm gonna have to go with Sunsao on this one.
Oh wow. Okay, you want to throw a bet down?
I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, Creighton's always ready to throw down bets until I throw it down. Come on, man. No, but I think it's a super fun fight, to be honest with you. And it's not that big of a deal, but I'd probably put Sterling and Sandhagen in the co-main. Um,
I agree.
I don't really think Cody Garbrandt even needs any more pressure being the co-main than he already has. So I'd like to see that flipped around, but again, not a big deal. And now moving on to the main event, Amanda Nunes, Felicia Spencer. It's hard for me to break this one down because I have so much bias. I mean, Amanda Nunes has done everything, and it's hard for me to see anyone who could give her trouble when Chris Cyborg, Duran Duran, Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey, when those people can't do it, it's hard for me to think that Felicia Spencer can. And that's no disrespect to Spencer, but I don't know. Let me hear your take, and you might change my mind and get me off the GOAT train.
Yeah, I'm obviously going to be biased, but it's hard for me to not argue Valentina Shevchenko just when I look at what she's done to her division and then we look at what she did up a division. I mean, obviously, Amanda Nunes is, at least it appears, significantly bigger at 135. And when you look at that second fight, I mean, obviously there's argument both ways, and Amanda did get her hand raised, but I personally think that I thought Shevchenko did enough to win that fight for sure. Just kind of look at the way she can piece everything together and how dominant she's been. So I would argue, and I might be lonesome on this argue, but in my opinion, I think Shevchenko is the most is the best woman fighting right now. But that's just my opinion. And as far as this fight goes, it's kind of hard to see where Felicia Spencer gets the win. The only thing that maybe does stand out in her favor is at 145, obviously is for Nunes, she's not going to have too drastic of a weight cut. So, maybe thinking going 5 rounds. Obviously, it's been proven that Felicia Spencer can, she can take some hits, take some shots. She went the distance with Cyborg. So, maybe if he gets into that 5th round and Nunes is tired because maybe her cardio isn't quite where it was at 135, and, maybe Felicia is able to slip some sort of submission in. Being in a small cage, it'd be easier to get her hands on her. But, outside of, and I'm really reaching on those, but outside of those, it's hard to see where she's able to do anything to Amanda Nunes, because, I mean, even if she isn't my GOAT, it's hard to argue that she's not, one of the best people fighting in the world right now. And I don't think that Felicia Spencer's got enough tools to beat her.
Yeah. The Valentina Shevchenko argument is a very good one, because we saw how Amanda Nunes, she finishes people, but you see Valentina Shevchenko like head kick Jessica Ai and finish Caitlin Chukagan, and it's like a different type of finish. It's like, I don't know. I'd love to see that fight again at bantamweight. I'd love that. But Felicia Spencer, as you saw against Chris Cyborg, she's super durable. And like you said, I think that was a great analysis. The only time I'd see Felicia Spencer winning is in the 4th and 5th round. But I haven't really seen any slowing down from Amanda Nunes in the 4th and 5th round at bantamweight. We haven't seen her at featherweight in the later rounds. So I think it's going to be an Amanda Nunes decision. I don't think she gets the finish. I think Felicia Spencer's a little too durable. What do you think?
I'm going to say that I think it's going to be TKO. I think the ref's going to step in.
You think she's just going to take so much damage it's going to be like a Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson type deal?
Yeah. I think in that 2nd round, maybe. I think a Nunes is just going to be, I think she's just going to be too much for her to handle.
Will you give me odds on going the distance?
Maybe we can discuss this.
Okay.
Things to discuss. I'd be willing to talk about that one.
We'll discuss it off air, of course. Thank you guys for joining in. This one was a little long one, but appreciate you joining in. If you made it to the end, appreciate you. Anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
No. I guess just with everything going on, be thankful for what you can, and love everyone around you.
Yeah, for sure, and stay safe. I hate to see people get hurt during this time, so stay safe. If you are going to go out, please, of course, take proper precautions, use a mask, stuff like that. And of course, my guest star, Sugar Sean O'Malley, thank you for joining us. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Creighton. Appreciate you. And we'll catch you guys on the flip.
All righty. God bless everybody.